Well, I think it's an important visit, as you are aware that South Africa and Russia are continuing to strengthen the relations, both at political level and also in relation to trade. Now, the Minister of Natural Resources from Russia is in the country. High on the agenda, of course, will be how the two countries are going to work together to ensure that they build strong relations in issues that are related to natural resources. And therefore, you know that South Africa currently is also struggling with issues that are related to energy. You know that Russia, when coming to gas and oil, they are one of the countries that is really supplying the world with such resources. And therefore, the meeting here will look at how both countries can work together. But I think political matters will also come under spotlight. But let's take a listen at what the Minister of Natural Resources and Environment from Russia had to say about this meeting.
The sanctions, of course, they have negative influence, and that forces us to create new options in financial sphere. And I hope that in the nearest future, we will have some practical solutions in this sphere.
Well, that's the Minister of Natural Resources from Russia talking about the sanctions that are affecting the country. We know that many countries, particularly the Western countries, including the United States of America, have imposed sanctions on Russia based on the war in Ukraine. But I think a lot is going to come out of this meeting when they get into real business of talking about how the economic relations can be strengthened, Naledi.
Talk about the sanctions, and I think that's a really good place for us to take it to the next part of the discussion, which we can all acknowledge this comes at a time when the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant of arrest for the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that story having dominated the news. What's the latest on that, especially from the expectation on what South Africa then does?
Well, I've lost the audio there, but I think the issue of the warrant of arrest, as I pointed out some few days ago, this matter was tabled before Cabinet yesterday. You know that the Department of International Relations did consult legal minds in terms of getting the legal opinion in how South Africa should proceed on this matter. And you know that the Minister of in the presidency is currently having a briefing, and I think she is going to touch on that. But what I do know is that the advice is that South Africa must look at the act that led to the domestication of the Rome Statute, or that treaty, the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court. You don't pull out, but you make some amendments, and that will have to be taken to Parliament, I'm sure, and it won't take long. And I guess if it has to be put to a vote, the African National Congress, with the numbers and other parties that are sympathetic to Russia, will be able to support for the amendment. Parties such as the Economic Freedom Fighters, the parties such as the PAC, and some smaller parties who are in support of Russia. And therefore, I think South Africa will be moving from that viewpoint. But also, I do know, my sources told me that in terms of Russia, President Putin is still ready to come and visit South Africa. In fact, there are arrangements in terms of ensuring that the delegation that will be accompanying him, it will be a high-powered delegation for that BRICS summit, and also in relation to the security. But let's take a listen at what the Minister of International Relations had to say about the relationship between South Africa and Russia, again sending a strong message to those who are putting pressure on South Africa to isolate Russia.
And while we are friends with many all over the world, we cannot become sudden enemies at the demand of others. I'm very pleased, dear Minister, that we will have an opportunity to engage on substantive issues which are important to economic growth and trade for our two countries. I believe very firmly that we will emerge from this meeting with a sense of purpose to advance this important work, and that we will build on commitments of mutual benefit that we hope to agree to during our deliberations of the 17th session of ITEC.
That's the Minister of International Relations, making it clear that no one is going to dictate to South Africa who South Africa's friends will be. I mean, this reminded me of former President Nelson Mandela, the late former President Nelson Mandela, when he was responding to the United States of America, particularly President Bush during the invasion of Iraq, that no one is going to dictate to South Africa who South Africa's friends would be. But even before he became the president of South Africa, President Mandela, when he visited the United States of America before elections, after he was released from prison, he uttered the same words when he was questioned about the relationship with Cuba, with China, including Russia. And therefore, I think the South African foreign policy anchored on peace and security, South Africa making it clear that this is what they stand for, and no one is going to dictate to South Africa how to handle the international relations matters or change its foreign policy stance.